Okay, hopefully this is a new look at an old topic for you. We're ultimately going to be talking about how we shift functions around. And boy, if there is a great power tool for graphing, this may be the top. This may be at the top of the list. We're going to talk about a lot of really sophisticated methods, but my guess is in past year or maybe years, you've done the type of thing we're going to talk about, but perhaps you never understood it. Maybe you've just memorized your way through this, and this is going to be a two-part video where this is just mostly a PowerPoint presentation where I may jot some notes on this along the way and give some explanation of what we're talking about. But this is kind of a mindset. Um, prior to prior to really starting to understand math, the abstractness threw me off, and I had to visualize what's going on. And we're going to talk about some things like how does the graph of y equals 2 times quantity x minus 3 squared plus 4 vary from just y equals x squared? And as I said, you probably have done some of that before, but just to give you a little bit of background on my thinking on this, when I introduce graphing, even at the simplest level, graphing lines, for instance, rather than call this the x-axis, I refer to this maybe as time, and I might use the unit days, and I refer to this, and I think this should make complete sense, height, and I might use inches. And I typically talk about corn growing. So for instance, plot a graph where the instructions on the corn say plant the corn on day 0, 2 inches deep, and the corn's going to grow 2 inches every 3 days. So it grows 2 inches every 3 days, grows 2 inches every 3 days. And we quickly learn that that becomes linear, and that's what the graph of the growth rate of our corn looks like. Excuse me. So you're going to hear me refer to the x-axis as being time and the y-axis very appropriately being height. But time and height have, it's more of a visual. It's less abstract than x and y. So we're going to discuss basic function or basic functions. And basic functions are functions, hey, I know what you look like. For instance, I know what y equals x squared looks like. I know what y equals absolute value of x looks like. I know what y equals square root of x looks like. And let's get one more out there. I know what y equals x cubed looks like. Any one of those in its state as written there in red could be considered a basic function, something we're familiar with. I might not know what y of negative 2 times quantity of x minus 3 cubed plus 6 looks like, but I know what y equals x cubed looks like. So what do basic functions do in terms of corn growing? They're factories that we put in time, and time goes into this factory and rumbles around in there and gets spit out as height. We put in time in days and we get out height in inches. That's what functions do. We put in x's, we get out y's, or in the case for my analogy, we put in time and we get out height. Okay, so let's continue on with this thought. Sometimes our functions have what I would refer to as a post function. For instance, we might have something like y equals x squared plus 4, where we take our base function, and once it's done its thing, order of operations, then we add 4 to it. So what does that really mean? What's going on here? Well, we know that we put time into a base function, and that base function takes that time, rumbles around, turns it into height. And of course, remember, that's what the basic function does. Apologies about this. That's what the basic function does. It turns time into height. So what's going into the post function? Height. In this case, we're taking height and adding 4 to it. I'm adding 4 to the height. I'm not changing height into something that it wasn't. I'm just adding 4 to height. So what comes out of this is an adjusted height. A post function is an adjusted height. Okay. Now, pre-function may be something that looks like this. Maybe y equals x minus 7 squared. So now I start with x. Before I ever get to my base function here, I'm subtracting 7. So what goes into our PreFunction? We start with our x value or our time. Before we let our base function, f, do its thing, we subtract 7. Subtract 7 from what? We subtract 7 from the time, so we get an adjusted time. That's really important. I didn't turn that into a height by subtracting 7. The base function is going to turn that into a height for us. Along the way, apologies to Big Ideas or to VeggieTales. But yeah, that makes sense. What does the PreFunction do? It starts with time and just adjusts the time. And then we go into our function, which takes that adjusted time and turns it into a height. That's what the base function does. Turns time into height. Really important concept there for understanding. Sure, we can give you rules and you can memorize them and get your way through, but these are going to be the same rules that you learned last year, and I would bet if I quizzed you on it right now based on your memory, you might have some trouble. Some of you would have some trouble with that. Okay, so that's going to lead into the next video that we're going to have, but a nice little method. We're going to be talking about PreFunction and PostFunction. PreFunction, something that happens before we put it into the function, affects time. PostFunction adjusts the height because the function takes time into and turns it into height, and then we put height into the PostFunction, we adjust the height. So recommend you immediately take a look at the other video that would be